It's Good Morning Nigeria, live on NTA's network service. Now, as a prompt for our conversation on the Electoral Offences Commission bill, let's listen to this background report by Joseph Odson.
Ballot box snatching, illegal supply of voter cards, printing of voters' register, electoral documents, and importation of mechanisms to influence outcome of elections are just few among many other electoral offences characterizing elections in Nigeria for decades. Experts have attributed to a large extent poor outcomes of elections and bad governance in Nigeria to electoral fraud, stealing the collective will of citizens to elect credible leaders. Inability of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) to prosecute electoral offenders is said to be serving as encouragement to perpetrators of these crimes. However, things are about to change as the Senate passes the National Electoral Offences Commission bill, which seeks to give INEC additional powers to carry out investigations into electoral offences and prosecute offenders. Among recommendations of the bill include at least a 5-year imprisonment or a fine of at least 10 million naira or both for any officer or executives of any association or political party that engages in electoral fraud, 15 years imprisonment for any person involved in ballot box snatching, supply of voter cards to persons without due authorization, and unauthorized printing of voter register, election documents, and importation of any device or mechanism by which ballot papers or results of elections may be extracted. But if assent to by President Muhammadu Buhari, will this framework ensure decrease in the level of electoral impunity, pin down bad elements causing damage to the process, and pave way for credible, free and fair elections in Nigeria? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will soon x-ray the bill and speak on its impact.
Well, we thank you, Joseph, for that background. And now let's introduce the first two guests that we have here in the studio. Festus Okoye is the INEC National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee. You're welcome.
Good morning.
All right, we also have in the studio Dr. Said Hussein, Director of Research, Center for Democracy and Development. Dr. Hussein, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're also expecting to have the Senate Committee Chairman on INEC, that's Senator Kabir Ibrahim Gai, will be joining us in just a moment.
All right, gentlemen, once again, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning. Let's begin with Mr. Festus Okoye, who is the INEC National Commissioner in charge of information. We have, of course, had the campaign for the establishment of an Electoral Offences Commission. And here we are, the Senate is said to have passed the bill already for this particular purpose. But being an insider in INEC yourself, is this commission potentially a surplusage or is it a necessity? And if so, what are your reasons?
Well, you know, I was a member of the Electoral Reform Committee established by the then President Yar'Adua in 2007 to look at the whole gamut of our electoral process. And this particular committee did recommend, as at that particular time, the establishment of an Electoral Offences Commission and Tribunal to deal with issues around the electoral offences. And if you also look at all the other panels and tribunals and commissions that have been established all through this period, all of them recommended the same thing. I was a member of the National Conference established by President Jonathan in 2014, and we also recommended the establishment of this particular commission and tribunal to deal with issues around the electoral offences. The commission as an institution has also said that the country needs a separate commission to deal with issues around the electoral offences because, one, the commission does not have the capacity, does not have the personnel, and also does not have the issues around the tools to properly and comprehensively investigate electoral offences. So I do not think that it is a surplusage. I think that it is an idea whose time has come. We need to, as a people and as a nation, to break the cycle of impunity that has pervaded our electoral process. So I believe that since we more or less conduct elections all year round, the commission will have work to do all year round because our elections have become completely staggered. So I don't think it's a surplusage. I think it's an idea whose time has come.
Now, talking about a commission that will take such a responsibility that you are talking about, what should be the structuring of this commission? Who are eligible to be a part of this commission? And again, who appoints the commission? Because in Nigeria here, we have seen situations where we've had commissions, we've had committees, and you know, at the end of the day, who pays the piper begins to dictate the tune. So, how will this commission be structured out of the from the society? You know, I mean, who are eligible to be there?
Well, I think that this is a really germane issue. Germane in the sense that the prosecution of electoral offenders, the arrest of electoral offenders, and the investigation of electoral offenders are things that are politically loaded. Being politically loaded, you need a commission that is completely independent to give a sense of fairness, a sense of justice to those who may likely be arrested. So the composition of the committee and the appointing authority for this particular committee is very, very fundamental. I have looked at the bill proposed by three distinguished senators, distinguished Senator Kabiru Gaya, distinguished Senator Omo Agege, and distinguished Senator Kyari. And I believe that the composition that was recommended is not the type of composition that such a committee should have. For instance, they recommended that we should have the commission should have a chairman, should also have one additional member and a secretary. These are the ones who are supposed to be independent. And then there will be a representative of the Inspector General of Police, a representative of the National Human Rights Commission, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission or his representative, a representative of the Legal Aid Council, and so on. I saw a membership of almost 18, and I don't think that it needs such a membership. What we need is a very compact commission made up of maybe 7 members, drawn from the society and made up of persons of unquestionable integrity that have expertise in security, have expertise in law, have expertise in human rights, representative of gender, and so on and so forth. And these people should ordinarily be appointed by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, subject to confirmation by the Senate. But I am also aware that there have been clamor that such a committee or such a commission or membership should be appointed by the National Judicial Council so that they can be completely and absolutely independent. So I think that we need to take a second look at the composition of the membership recommended by the distinguished members who proposed the committee in the Senate. I believe that what they recommended is not adequate and will not guarantee the type of independence we want. And they also recommended that some of the members should be part-time members. But if you look at the composition, the number of part-time members and the number of persons who are going to be permanent, you will see that the part-time members outnumber those who are going to be permanent. And that, for me, it does not sit well. It does not give you that independence it requires. It does not remove that perception that it may be used for political witch hunt. So we need a commission that is completely independent and will be seen to be independent of both the executive, the legislature, and other interests in the society.
Thank you, Mr. Festus Okoye. Let's bring in Dr. Saeed Hussein. Dr. Hussein, what is your take on the Electoral Offences Commission bill?
Thank you very much. I think I'll firstly echo a lot of what the good commissioner has said about this being a development that in certain respects is way overdue, in fact. So it's certainly a laudable development because from various corners of the society for over a decade now, there have been strong recommendations to separate the regulatory responsibilities of INEC from its operational activities. Because simply put, INEC has been overburdened with much more than it can handle, and this has, to some extent, meant that offenders in elections have been able to get away without being prosecuted or properly investigated. So this move by the Senate to actually take this recommendation into account in the passage of this bill is certainly laudable. Nonetheless, there's still work to be done in making sure that it doesn't remain just a commission on paper, or that it doesn't just fill a gap, but that it actually is independent, as the Commissioner has also said, and that it is empowered in terms of the human resources, in terms of the material resources, to be able to effectively prosecute and investigate cases of electoral offense. So I think if that further step is taken to institutionalize its independence and to provide it with the necessary resources and manpower to carry out its duties, then we can actually see some progress in the regulatory conduct of our elections.
Now, Mr. Okoye also spoke about the composition of such a commission. You're a researcher, and I'm sure you have researched into the electoral process of other democratic settings across the globe. What would be your take, respect to who should belong to this commission?
I think the underlying value that the composition of the commission should seek to secure is that of independence, meaning that those appointed to the commission have to be parties that are distant from the electoral process, are not some of the parties within the electoral process, and can take an impartial view of the proceedings of elections, of party campaigns, and make an assessment of where there have been infractions in such a way that a variety of social actors, both those who participate in the elections and those on the outside, can feel much more confidence in the process. So I think more critical than at this stage identifying specific individuals or entities is establishing that value and making sure that the independence of whoever is appointed is absolutely secured. And I believe that more than anything will give an assurance to key stakeholders in society and Nigerian citizens that this is something that will protect their vote and be in their democratic interest.
All right, thank you, Sahid. Let's come back to Festus Okoye. Mr. Okoye, what do we know about the proposed powers of the commission? What will be the scope of the activities of the commission if it does become a reality?
Well, I think that the commission is basically established to investigate electoral offenders, arrest electoral offenders, and also prosecute electoral offenders. Now, if you look at Section 150 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, that particular power was initially domiciled with the Independent National Electoral Commission and its officers, or any other legal practitioner appointed by it. So it was our staff that we are prosecuting some of these electoral offenders. But it's one thing to prosecute. It's also another thing to have the power to investigate and also the power to arrest. The police must have to arrest first, carry out investigation before a file is moved to the commission for purposes of a prosecution. And sometimes there's a gap. One of the big challenges that has occurred in relation to the arrest, investigation, and prosecution of electoral offenders relates to the fact that some of these electoral offenses occur on election day. And some of the officers that are on duty on election day are not necessarily officers that are domiciled in a particular state. some of them are moved to a particular state on election day. So offenses are committed, arrests are made. Immediately after the election, some of those officers are moved back to their jurisdiction. So investigation is stalled. And then even when prosecution starts, you find out that a prosecution is taking place in Delta State, for instance, but the officers that worked on election day in Delta are officers from Borno State, or who are ordinarily posted to Borno State. So getting them back to Delta State becomes a huge challenge, both financially and otherwise. And more often than not, you see cases being struck out on grounds of lack of diligent prosecution, and that is not good enough. But one big challenge I have with the bill relates to some of its provisions. If you look at Part 8 of the Electoral Act, the existing Electoral Act, you will see that the bill made very elaborate provisions in terms of electoral offenses. It covers issues around registration of voters, issues around nomination of candidates, issues around disorderly conduct or disorderly behavior, issues around improper use of the voter's card, issues around improper use of vehicles, impersonation, dereliction of duty, bribery and conspiracy, wrongful voting and false statement, undue influence, and so on and so forth. Now, I believe that what the bill ought to do is to recognize these offenses, either move these offenses out of the Electoral Act into the new bill, or just make a provision in the new bill to take into consideration these electoral offenses that have already been created. But what the bill did was that it engaged in what is normally called surplusage over legislation. It still legislated on some of these issues that have already been covered. And I think that by so doing, you create a little bit of confusion in terms of the fact that the offenses that are covered in the Electoral Act have received some judicial interpretation in the past. But these other ones that you are now interpreting, we create a problem. The Electoral Act has defined what is bribery and undue influence. And then you're also creating an offense of bribery in the new bill and defining it. So that is going to create a little bit of confusion. So I believe that what we should do, or what the committee should do, recognize the offenses that are already created, and then look for new offenses that are not covered by the Electoral Act, and then make provision for those new offenses in the bill, rather than duplicating issues that are already there.
Now, how will this commission operate, in terms of the fact that we also have elections that are handled by the subnationals, state elections, local government elections, and what have you? Is it going to be a national commission that will actually, cover all manner of elections in Nigeria, or will it not be centered? Will it be at the center, or should the subnationals have its own such commissions at that level?
Honestly, I really believe that this particular bill should focus only on elections that are conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission and elections that are constitutionally protected. The state's independent electoral commissions conduct local government elections. The Constitution has also made provision for the state's independent electoral commissions and their procedures. So I believe that offenses that are committed when local government elections are conducted should be better handled by laws of the various states, rather than imputing them into this particular one. Imputing them into this will create its own challenges. Because, for instance, if you look at section 150 of the present Electoral Act, the courts that are given the jurisdiction to handle electoral offenses includes the magistrate courts. But in the new bill, the magistrate courts are removed. And then you have the Federal High Court, you have the State High Court, and the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory. But in local government elections, some of those offenses may be better handled by the magistrate courts. So I think that the state's independent electoral commissions and the elections they conduct should be completely removed from this particular bill, and this bill should be specialized. The commission should just handle electoral offenses relating to elections conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission.
Okay, Mr. Okoye, thank you. Dr. Said Hussein, Well, what would you like to see in terms of the powers and scope of the Electoral Offences Commission? I'm asking this question. Yes, there had been proposals to have such a commission in the past, and now the National Assembly is working towards that. But the reality might be a bit more challenging. You know, we have a whole gamut of electoral offences, from petty offences that obviously misdemeanors to the big-time felonies, including, of course, capital offences when persons get murdered on election day or when they are snatching ballot papers. What would you like to see ordinarily?
I think optimally we would like to see an Electoral Offences Commission that has the power to not only investigate and prosecute offenders, but also to make arrests, because the current situation is one wherein the degree of offences seem to surpass the capacity of the agencies that are tasked with making such or conducting such investigations, arrests, and prosecutions. So there's clearly a lacuna there that, if it's not filled, will continue to encourage impunity in the practice of our democracy. So this commission needs to be one that is empowered to conduct the full gamut of activities that span from making investigations to prosecuting offenders, and also conducting arrests. And frankly, without wading too deeply into the legal issues, it's clear that these offenses occur not only in national elections, but also at the state level and also at the local government level. And this extent of impunity cutting across the three tiers of government means that democracy, even at the level where it matters most, at the locality, continues to be undermined by all sorts of actions from, as the Commissioner has said, improper uses of the voting card, to what we've seen now become a common practice of offering monetary or other forms of inducement to voters, to underage voting. This clearly occurs from the most local level all the way to national and presidential elections. So a commission that's empowered to carry out the necessary activities to limit these sorts of these sorts of activities, I think will go a long way in strengthening our democracy. And that's what I think Nigerians have been clamoring for over the past 2 decades of our democratic experience. One thing to highlight, though, is that this will certainly also require some working out in practice. So, as you mentioned earlier, when thinking about how to progress our democracy, we have to draw from the experience of other democracies. But I think no experience is as informative as our own. So some of the specifics and peculiarities of how this commission ought to operate will be worked out in practice, and there's no escaping that. But I think starting from a solid baseline that actually empowers this commission to be independent and actually gives it a range of tools to help it operate will be a necessary starting point.
I was just wondering, Kieran, Mr. Okoye, I want you to speak to this. How do we expect the Electoral Offences Commission to have powers of arrest, powers of investigation, powers of prosecution? Now, when they are prosecuting, would they be prosecuting as a tribunal, that's to say as a commission sitting as a tribunal, or prosecution will now take place in any of the courts specified, say in the bill, whether state high court or its equivalent at the federal level? What are we talking about? Because I mean, to have all of these powers fused into one entity just might raise some jurisprudential questions.
Well, I think that the commission is structured after the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, so that it will have the power to arrest, power to investigate, and also its officers will be the ones that will prosecute these matters in court. So I think that is structured around the EFCC and the ICPC. So I think that it is, if it is structured that way, the implication is that there won't be this gap that exists between what the commission was doing before where a different agency was doing the arrest and investigation, and then a different commission was doing the prosecution. So when you fuse these powers into one, it makes for better coordination. It also makes for better management. But having said that, I have also looked at some of the provisions of this new bill, and I'm really bothered at some of the things that have been put into the bill and the implication it will have on our national interest. For instance, if you look at Section 25 of the bill, it talks about prohibition on campaigns against the national interest. And if you look at Section 25, subsection 1C, it talks about, it says, no person shall propagate or cause to be propagated anything or information that causes or is capable of causing people to vote on the basis of any religion, community, caste, tribe, language, or territorial region. Now, the question I have asked myself is this. When somebody is propagating the concept of zoning, does that not mean propagating the concept of territorial region in relation to elections? And when somebody is saying that my community has been marginalized and my community is the turn of my community to produce a president or produce a governor or produce a senator at this point in time, does that not mean that the person is propagating on the basis of community? Now, if you look at the offense that has been the penalty for this, the penalty for it is 20 years imprisonment without an option of fine. So I think that some of these loose clauses, some of these loose concepts have to be taken on board and properly defined so that people who propagate the concept of zoning or those who propagate the concept of a community will not inadvertently find themselves in jail where they will have an option of fine.
During the Second Republic said we are zoning to unzone. So how are you going to prosecute it?
All right. At this moment, we've not been joined by Senator Kabir Ibrahim Gaya, Chairman, Senate Committee on INEC. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you? And good morning, Nigerians. Happy to be with you.
All right. We've actually, delved into some aspects of this topic, right? But we're going to go back, since we're here now, to also share your own opinion on some of the issues we have already discussed. But first, give us an idea of the concept of this commission. Why the commission in the first place? Why did Senate find it necessary, to now, review the electoral process and think in the direction of having an electoral commission bill?
Well, first of all, we have been actors on the election stage, and we have some experiences of elections, the problems during elections, the violence, and what other issues takes place during the elections. And the essence of reviewing an act is to make sure that where you had an experience of problems, you need to have a solution to those problems. Then you now bring up an act to modify the previous law. And based on that, we came up with this Electronic Offences Commission. We found that the role of INEC was also mainly after supervising and running the election. They also prosecute election offenders. And that's been very difficult to happen, because even INEC is being burdened by a lot of elections cases in courts. So they cannot be able to now be running the election and also punishing those who are offenders of the election. So therefore, we decided to say, let's have an Electoral Offences Commission that can be able to take care of this aspect of the law, so that we will have a commission that takes care of all those offences issues. There are so many things that really mar the elections, especially when people can come to the venue of the election, disrupt the election, create violence, and make people turn away, or shoot guns on in the air, and then people get scared and run away, and they fill the boxes of the election with ballot paper that are stamped with what they really want to put there. So therefore, there are a lot of things. Sanitize the election, you really have to create a law of which you can be able to punish those people who are found wanting, especially because most of the cases where we just have this issue of election malpractices and a lot of other things were due to that people are not being punished for offenses they have done during the election. So based on that, we find that there's a need for this act, and it's going to strengthen the idea or the policy that we have, that we should have a free, fair, and credible election. Those are one of the reasons why we have to create laws to make things that go the way we believe it should be, and the way that people can have confidence in our elections during and then after the elections.
I'm just wondering, because we've been discussing some of the material aspects of the proposed commission. Are we talking about a commission that has powers to arrest, investigate, and prosecute, or for better efficacy, would it not be all right to just say you have a tribunal? A tribunal that you have, of course, the powers to investigate, give it to the police and other investigative agencies, and then instead of a commission now, you have a tribunal that sits as a court and has the powers of a high court, and appeals therefrom could then lie to the Court of Appeal. But in this case, it appears that we are creating a bureaucracy, a commission to, one, investigate, arrest, and then prosecute in the regular courts, which, of course, will be you go to the High Court in the first instance, from the High Court or Magistrate Court, depending on how it is phrased, or that's been taken out, and then you escalate it up to the Supreme Court if necessary. So is it a commission that will be more effective, or a tribunal?
Well, you see, you have to have the commission at the beginning, because you don't just send people to tribunal without having the basis of the case. So therefore, we decided that we should have this commission. And even at the end of the day, some have the idea that we should bring up a special tribunal that will take care of this election offense. It will be much easier, and the cases can be done and finished before a candidate is sworn in. Maybe that candidate might have won the election, and unfortunately he was found disrupting the election, so that's an offense. And if the commission finds him wanting and pass him to the court, there will be judgment on the offenses he committed, and that might even make him lose his seat. So it depends on the law where it says on that section of the act. So therefore, I believe we are trying to sanitize the system. We're trying to have people to have more confidence in the election in the country, and to have to feel really that yes, who they voted is the one being reflected at the end of the day, so they don't simply change people along the line, which it could be possible if we don't have punishment for all those acts. So therefore, that's one of our major reasons. I think there is also a need for, as you said, for a tribunal at the end of the day to be able to take care of these cases. But we are now, the law stands on the Electoral Offences Commission, and there are also penalties for the offences done by individuals or groups of persons or even political party, which they could be charged. And when you have a commission, a tribunal, and that could help greatly in using the act to punish those who are found wanting.
Yeah, Mr. Senator, one of the concerns raised by some Nigerians is the aspect of ensuring that the commission operates independently, and that brings to focus the issue of a composition of such a commission. From what the bill is saying, can we know the recommendations in the bill as to who should be part of this commission? And again, who appoints the commission?
Well, at the end of the day, the presidents appoint the commission, but there are procedures and process in which, for the nomination of any candidate for the commission, but at the end of the day, the president approves or nominates the candidate to the Senate, and the Senate finally pass or reject that candidate submitted to the commission, and that is the basis. But you have to start from setting up a committee to check the names of those people who are qualified to be passed to the president, and the president will be passed to us. So we'll pass to the Senate, and the Senate will be able to either screen, accept the candidate, or reject that candidate. But we need to have credible and sound Nigerians to be members of that commission.
What cognate experience or background would the law require of potential appointees as commissioners to have?
We said people of, I think, 15 years cognate experience in the service. Some of us said we could be a lawyer or any kind of field that it can be relevant to the agency of which the president have the right to choose, but should have at least minimum of 15 years experience in service.
The other point that Mr. Okoye spoke about earlier, you were not on set with us at that time, has to do with whether, for instance, the Senate had recourse to existing legislation, say in the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, which is still valid. That's to say, the Electoral Act 2010 as amended has already provided a detailed list of offences. But that in the new bill, there is a replication, as it were, of these offences, and some of the provisions would appear to be in tension with one another. Couldn't a drafting technique have taken care of that by referring to provisions in existing legislation deemed to be offences?
Well, we thought about that, but we felt that each law should have where it is being covered for. It doesn't matter when the punishment are the same. Even if you repeat it in this act and the other act, it's still, we believe it's still okay. You don't have to now refer to the act or so. But once it is there and we repeated it in the same Electoral Offences Commission Act, I think it's to us we felt it's okay. There is not a repetition. There are two different acts, and but the punishment are the same, and the act says the same valid on those offences. So it doesn't matter if we repeat on the act once we didn't make it different than what is in the other act.
But Mr. Okoye, please, I'd like you to rewind to some of the issues you've already touched in the past, so that the Distinguished Senator will be part of it. You didn't agree with some of the sections of the bill, especially in terms of composition and other issues that you raised. Please state it clearly, so that the Distinguished Senator will hear you and see how he could also react to that.
Well, for instance, I raised issues around the composition of this particular commission, and if you look at Section 2 of the bill, it talks about the commission having a chairman who is going to be the chief executive and the accounting officer, and then there will also be a distinguished Nigerian of unblemished reputation of not less than 15 years cognate experience, and then a secretary. Then it goes further to say that there should also be, or there will be, persons who are going to serve on ad hoc basis, on a part-time basis. And these people are going to come from, there will be a representative of the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Ministry of Defense, Information, a representative of the Inspector General of Police, a representative of the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, or the chairman himself, a chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, or a representative, the Commandant General, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, the Director General of the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, or his representative, the Director General, Legal Aid Council, and then 6 Nigerians with cognate experience in law and other fields. And if you look at this composition, you find out that the people coming from these other agencies outnumber those who are going to come from other agencies. So the point I'm making is that we need a commission that will be seen to be independent, both in fact and in law, and a commission that everybody will trust. But when you populate this type of commission that is going to deal with political issues, with people from government, so to say, the impression that will be created is that there is no way it can be independent. And if you also look, the question I have asked myself is, when the commission is dealing with policy issues, these people who are coming from outside, are they going to have the same voting power like those who are permanent members, if they're going to have the same voting power like the permanent members, you can see that those who are coming from outside outnumber those who are within. So it's going to create its own dynamics. So I believe that we should take a second look at the composition. And for me, the composition is too large, over 18 members. We should have a compact commission of maybe 7 members who will deal with these issues. Any other individual that needs to be brought in can be brought in as a staff. People who are going to be investigating, those who are going to be prosecuting, those who are going to be doing the arrest, and so on and so forth. But the commission itself, the policy-making organ of the commission, should be compact and should not be more than 7. That's part of the point I was making.
I think one of the reasons why we came with this number, and I want Okoye to note that he has been an ethical committee member of this committee. He has been a resource person within us, and he was part of all the debate we had during the sittings at technical committee meetings. We felt that there is a need to involve all these other agencies. Find that the police are there, the SS are there. They are part of the organization that helps in the arrest and prosecuting also of those offenders. So we felt that there is a need to have them involved so that when we are, and then we have these 6 or 7 people he's talking about, that the 6 people from the Dons plus the chairman, the secretary, and then the other people of the commission. So I believe that we try to carry a lot of people on board to make sure that, yes, when we are on this board is sitting, it's having the representation of other agencies in case there is a need for respond or support from this agency. They always have a representative at that. We have the representative of the Office of the Attorney General, we have the police, we have the SS, and a lot of other agencies that were also involved. And when we did the public hearing, there were no dissenting voice about this composition, because the public hearing also guide us in giving us the strength to accept what we have in the bill, because for every part of the bill is being discussed at the public hearing, and Nigerians come out with their opinions. And if the opinions, they don't go against this opinion, we believe that it is accepted. So that's why I think the composition to us, since the bill is still in order, and that the bill has been passed at this stage, and we need to, if there's any difference from the House, it is when we will now do a concurrent. But if there is other views come also from the House, which is like what you're suggesting, it's something that we'll look at it before the bill finally comes out to the floor of the National Assembly.
I was just wondering, what is the proposed administrative structure of the commission? Are you going to have a commission with headquarters in Abuja? And to the extent that these are electoral offences relating to elections conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission, if an offender is picked up, say, in Sokoto, are you going to be prosecuting him in Sokoto? Or that's what is it going to, you know, EFCC has offices in virtually all the states of the Federation. So
even the INEC has offices in every state of the Federation, and therefore this commission will have offices in Abuja at the headquarters, and then other offices in the state of the Federation, in all the states of the Federation, including FCT, so that they can be able to monitor these offenses of the election during the elections, and they could be able to also resolve some issues even at the state level before pass to the federal level for prosecutions. So we are going to have officers in all parts of the Federation, and that's what is in the Act. I wish that so that the whole country can now be covered under that process.
Are we also looking at the numbers in terms of the cost of setting up this commission in the first instance and then getting the commission to run?
You see, the most important aspect is not issue of the cost, is maintaining the free and fair election. Whatever it takes for you to have peace in this country, you don't look at the cost. The essence is for you to achieve that, that success of having peaceful, free, fair, and credible election. And all we are doing, even the modification of the Electoral Act, is make sure that we have peaceful election, and all the so the issue doesn't matter about the cost. When we're even trying to introduce electronic voting, At the beginning, it might cost us more, but we are thinking that it's going to help in determining a most credible elections. So when you are spending money to maintain peace, I think it doesn't.
It's okay.
Takes
Yeah,
much.
but it just Kieran,
all right.
just one point is that the distinguished senator, when you say that cost doesn't matter, where the Treasury doesn't have enough funds to release to the Commission, and then the Commission gets hamstrung, then the ends that it seeks to achieve might be compromised.
We do not hope to have to go to that level, but we expect that the Commission will be paid directly from the first line charged, and that they will have the funds to be able to handle all these issues. We must be able to have free, fair, and credible election. We also must have an election in which thereby there will be transfer from a democratic system to another democratic system.
Will this commission be under the presidency, or will it?
It is going to be an independent body.
Okay.
Because if it's not independent, we are going to have more problems because they are the ones that are in charge of maintaining the election as free and fair.
Sure. All right, thank you, distinguished Senator. Dr. Hussein, you've listened to the Senator guy with us here. And with the long history of electoral violence, of offenses in Nigeria, do you think that this commission will be effective enough to change the narrative?
So once again, I think it's important to say it really is heartwarming to see this development because again, stakeholders for the past decade at least have made this recommendation over and over. So to see progress on it is indeed encouraging. I think the devil will be in the details in terms of implementation. Fundamentally, we do desire that a commission that has the capacity to conduct investigations, to make arrests, to prosecute offenders will be institutionalized. But the extent to which it can carry out its functions will depend on these questions that are being debated now. Who and what agencies are part of the administrative oversight of the commission? To what extent can it actually be funded? To what extent does it have national spread? All of these issues, I think, are critical in ensuring that it's successful. So we've come some way in actually getting it passed in the Senate. But I think working out these details will be essential to actually guaranteeing that this organization is independent and is capable of carrying out its functions to reduce impunity in our electoral process and to actually give us that credible and free election that we so desire.
I raised a question earlier, and I still would like to ask it this time, Dr. Said. Namely, when you have hundreds of thousands of actual or potential electoral offenses being committed, where do you think that a commission of this nature can make the most impact? Is it in chasing petty offenses or in chasing the bigger offenses? That's to say the really big-time electoral crooks whom you want to bring to justice.
There's certainly a need to carry out activities that can bring to bear the big electoral offenses. I mean, of course, the huge scandals that sometimes splash the pages of newspapers do a lot to undermine the credibility of citizens in the electoral process. But the issues that you might refer to as small time or petty electoral offenses also go a long way if aggregated across all the polling units in the country in changing the outcome of elections. So optimally, we would want an agency that's empowered to look at issues spanning from petty criminality around polling units, issues of intimidation and vote buying, all the way to large-scale fraud. So I think the distinction between small and large shouldn't be what really, I think, distracts us or occupies us primarily. I think the key issue here is how can we ensure that this organization is given all the resources it requires in terms of manpower, in terms of material resources to do the best job it can. And when we see an organization that is actually making credible efforts to resolve the electoral malpractice that we encounter in the form of legal infractions, then Nigerians will invest that organization with much more confidence, with much more of their aspiration, and we'll see it develop the capacity to do even more. But we have to see that initial investment of resources, of manpower, and of independence before this organization can really take off.
Well, gentlemen, there's one clarification I'd like you to do with respect to the nature of offenses committed on election days. There are offenses committed on election days. There are also offenses committed by the politicians themselves, who actually, facilitate the offenses on election day, because any thug that is out there to help rig an election is doing it for someone. Now, when election is declared, for instance, and somebody is declared a winner, and the person wants to go to court, is there any role the commission is going to play in this respect? Or should the person go to other courts, as the case may be? I don't know. I want to see if there is any role the commission is going to play if a politician who perhaps may have been defeated in an election feels that, look, that he was shortchanged and there was an electoral malpractice that led to his opponent winning him. Is he going to go through the commission to prosecute whoever he's blaming for his failure to win the election?
Well, for instance, if you look at the existing electoral legal framework, Section 149 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, gives even the tribunals and the various courts the power to make a determination whether an offense has been committed in an election petition. And if an offense has been committed, they have the power to refer that particular offender to the commission for purposes of prosecution. And in this respect, it will be this new commission that will have that virus to make that prosecution. But I think that more fundamentally, we must find ways and means of covering issues and challenges around party nomination processes. Because while other sectors of our electoral process are really making progress, there seems to be some level of regression in relation to the political parties and the organization, in relation to party nomination processes and so on. So we must find a way of making sure that the political parties do the right thing. A political party that knowingly and deliberately nominates a candidate that they know is not qualified, nominates a candidate that they know has documents that are not real or documents that are forged, should be made to pay heavily for that particular offense. So we need to focus much more fundamentally on some of these infractions by political parties, some of these infractions in relation to their party nomination processes. If we are able to break that cycle, there's a possibility that going into the election, some of the challenges will be less.
Mr. Okoye, I'm not talking about internal, party democracy. I'm talking about Party A and Party B. You have two candidates. They go for an election.
Yes.
Right. And Party A's candidate wins.
Yes.
Then Party B's candidate says, look, this man won because there was an electoral malpractice on the day of the election at so many uncertain words of the election. So now, in trying to prosecute that case, is the Party B man going to prosecute this case involving the commission because there's an electoral malpractice that led to the winning of the other candidates? So that I'm trying to understand how the process will go. Because the commission is, when it comes into existence, right, and somebody is suing an opponent for winning him via electoral malpractice. So what will be the role of the commission in the process of litigation?
Well, I think that there are two issues involved here. One, if for instance, somebody believes that his or her opponent did not win elections fairly, that bribery was used, undue influence was used, corruption was involved, and so on and so forth. It is a basis for nullifying a particular election and declaring even the opponent winner of the election, or nullifying the election and also saying that they should go for a fresh election or a by-election. And in some instances, even the individual who was declared winner may not even be a participant in the subsequent election. So that is at one level. But at another level, an offense has already been committed. An electoral offense has been committed. And what Section 149 of the Electoral Act says is that if the tribunal or the court identifies that an offense has been committed, that tribunal has the power to refer that individual or that political party to the commission for purposes of prosecution. Now, in relation to this bill, the court or the tribunal will now refer that individual or political party to this particular commission, and then this particular commission will further investigate, will do arrest, and then prosecute the electoral offender.
Well, Mr. Okoye, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thanks a lot. I said, Dr. Saheed said, by the time you begin to implement the provisions of the Act, then of course you come up with practical challenges. I do hope that the explanation that Mr. Okoye was providing a while ago doesn't lead to a two-track confirmation process of an electoral winner. Because the question that Kirian asked relating to say, oh, okay, I've been defeated in an election because there were alleged malpractices, X, Y, Z. I should first take my case to the Election Petition Tribunal. So if the Election Petition Tribunal makes a pronouncement on that, am I then going to have to wait for the Electoral Offences Commission to say, oh no, Kingsley, you sponsored thugs, or Kirian, you sponsored thugs, X, Y, Z. So as I said, these are some of the practical issues that we probably will need to clarify.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
For instance, if you shoot your way, for instance, if an election, a collation is going on at a collation center, and then you arrive there with people who are armed, and they start shooting, and then the police effect arrest, they don't have to wait for your matter to go to Election Petition Tribunal before prosecuting you for an offense that has already been committed. So it depends on the appreciation at that point in time of the trajectory of issues.
Yeah, well, thank you. Again, from your explanation, another issue arises. If gunmen, whether known or unknown, arrive at a collation center, you have to prove that indeed I procured them and then dispatch them for that particular assignment. All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
All right, you're welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA network service. Distinguished Senator Gaya, let's do projections now. Are we expecting this commission to come into existence before the 2023 general elections? If yes, will it be functional at that time?
Well, we even hope the commission will be ready before the end of this year, that we will pass the bill and then submit it to Mr. President for signing. You could see recently when we passed the PIB, it didn't take time. The President signed the bill. And we just hope this Electoral Offences Commission and the Electoral Act will also be passed within this period. And we need to get it passed before the election period so that the commission can start immediately and be able to take effect and be able to establish the commission in such a way that it will be benefit to the Nigerians. And I believe that within this year, this commission should be established.
Are you hopeful that this commission will be effective?
It is. I'm really hopeful, and that it also gives me strength when we had the public hearing. A lot of people turned up, and people were interested in this commission. Mostly also politicians are also, because some of those who lost election because of political violence and other maneuvers really are interested that if we do this, at least you are bringing justice close to the elections, justice close to getting good results, and then at least punishing the offenders. In most cases, election go through and the offenders get free without being punished for any offense they did. So it is a very important bill, and you find that some of the powers of INEC that we are removing to set up a special commission for that. And even the INEC themselves are very happy for the commission to be established. They are overburdened by too much pressure on the election process and procedures when they now start thinking of prosecuting. And I remember if you ask Okoye, he will tell you a number of cases they've been going through almost after every election. And virtually in this country, election is almost every day. We have by-elections, we have the other elections that were staggered initially. So there is always an election process every day. But so I think if we remove, which we did now, and we expect the bill to be passed and signed by the president, and when it's signed, it now becomes an act, and then the process of establishing the commission will be the next thing.
I was just wondering, because the point was always made that the political bigwigs were often behind, allegedly, the frustration of the diligent prosecution of electoral offenders, even before the advent of this commission. That is to say, you arrest political thugs, and then a call comes, from wherever, say, release him or release them. And that is the end of the matter. And it is often alleged that it is politicians, those who are in the same class with you, distinguished senator, who are behind all of this. That's why I asked the question whether you are hopeful that this commission will work.
Well, I'm hopeful because we must have hope for better people to be in governance than having people who can simply dictate how the process will be done. They know they are wrong, and they ask people to commit the offense, and yet they are not punished. That's why you find that in this there is issue even for those who encourage somebody or who mobilize people even to go to a polling unit and disrupt the election, or even to mobilize somebody to get extra voting cards or whatever process somebody does to manipulate the election. For those who even encourage them will be punished. So if it's a politician, it will be punished. If you're a political party, it will be going to be punished. So we have gone to the extent of which we intend to punish even the architects to the crisis on the election days.
I think that question by Councillor is very, very apt, because we've experienced elections in Nigeria for a long time, and we know really what happens and the role the so-called bigwigs play, when it comes to issue of electoral malpractice. And again, let me ask this question, will this commission have the power to cancel election results if it deems it necessary, perhaps in the process of prosecuting a particular case? Can it happen, Mr. Okoye?
No. These are two different tracks. The track relating to election petitions, if you look at our constitutional framework, you can see that there are two tracks. We have what we call the pre-election matters that are handled by the regular courts, and now under Section 285 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we have timelines for those cases. Then you have the second track. When an election has been conducted, the post-election procedures that are handled by the election tribunals, and then for certain petitions, they terminate at the Supreme Court. For senatorial, House of Representatives, and others, they terminate at the Court of Appeal, which is the final court. So it is these courts that have the power constitutionally to deal with issues around election petitions and can cancel an election, if you permit me to use that word, and order for a new election, or order for a by-election, or order than somebody else, other than the person who the commission has declared as the winner, won the election. But the election petition, this particular commission that we're envisaging that may come into being, will deal with electoral offenses and punish electoral offenders. So its remit is punishment. Either the person is fined or the person is sent to prison. But in terms of cancelling elections or in terms of returning winners, no, this particular commission does not have the power constitutionally and legally to do that.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Festus Okoye. Dr. Shahid Hussain, again, I would like you to speak to this. These so-called political thugs who disrupt elections, virtually in every state of the Federation, you know who the hotheads are. And these are persons who operate usually with impunity because they feel that they are covered by their sponsors who are the powers that be. What guarantee is there that this commission can break that barrier and then, of course, compromise the acts of impunity by these political thugs and their sponsors, so that the commission doesn't begin to get the same phone calls that the law enforcement agents usually get, say, release him, release him, release him, they are our boys, and if you don't release him, you get transferred or you get demoted?
I think that's a very important question. Part of why electoral thuggery continues to exist is that the people who carry it out and the people who order them to carry it out are not punished. So it's that missing piece of actually holding people accountable for their offenses related to elections that this commission is seeking to address. Now, your question is, can this commission actually address that issue if the people who benefit from these offenses are then put in power or are then in power, in positions of power? I think one thing to keep in mind is that despite the fact that, of course, politicians are often the key beneficiaries of electoral offenses, they are also the key losers in these electoral offenses, right? So there are strong interests in actually having electoral crimes prosecuted, both within the citizenry and amongst politicians. But fundamentally, I think the value that needs to be underlined once again is that of independence. If we can ensure that this commission is insulated from the influence of politicians, insulated from the influence of power brokers in society, through the way in which its membership is constituted, through the way in which its funding is established, then I think we'll see political thuggery, both in terms of the people carrying it out and the people ordering it, reduce. But to accomplish that, once again, I think the critical value that needs to be established is that of independence. We have yet to see this sort of commission exist in our practice of democracy, so we don't have our own experience to draw from. But I think looking at the experience of other countries, even neighboring countries, having institutions of this sort that actually have the capacity and space to conduct investigations, right, to bring in those offenders and question them, or to collect evidence, goes a long way in reducing these kinds of activities. So I think that possibility is there, but critically, for it to be realized, we would need to see a commission that really is independent and really is empowered to be able to carry out these responsibilities that it's been given.
All right, Senator Gaya, your final words as we are rounding up this program.
Well, the essence of establishing the commission really is to make sure that people are punished for an offense created, whether be it those who engineered the process or sponsored the thuggery during the election, or other process for the offenses of the commission, and then for the boys or the people who are used during the commission, during the commitment of the offenses. So this will help them, and I believe that the independence of the commission will give it the teeth to bite whoever been involved in the process of creating creating offenses during the elections. So therefore, I hope and pray that this commission will have the support of the Nigerians and the support of the government to make it more independent, and then the quality of the people who are going to be in charge of the commission, which the Senate will also going to screen those chairmen and members of the commission. We should suppose our people of caliber, people of interest of Nigerians at heart, who we believe cannot be dictated from by a phone call to do something that is wrong.
Okay, distinguished Senator Ibrahim Gaya, the Chairman Senate Committee on INEC, would like to thank you for being part of our conversation.
Thank you very much.
We also would like to appreciate Dr. Saeed Hussein, his Director of Research at the Center for Democracy and Development. Thank you for being around today.
Thank you for having me.
And Mr. Festus Okoye, Honorable INEC Commissioner in charge of information, would like to appreciate.
We call him Professor Okoye. For the role he played during the all the electoral process. You have been our anchor man.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
I do hope that these electoral offences will actually cover pre-voting offences. People deface posters, destroy billboards of their opponents, heads are cracked or broken during rallies. I think all these ones are all covered. And it's not only by snatching ballot papers that you commit, or ballot boxes, that you commit electoral offences. Gentlemen, thank you for being around. Once again, let's go over now to our sports desk.
All right, now let's get some news from across the world.
Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has addressed his people from exile in the United Arab Emirates. He said that he had left Kabul to prevent bloodshed and denied reports he took large sums of money with him as he departed the presidential palace. Ghani has been bitterly criticized by former ministers for leaving the country suddenly as Taliban forces entered Kabul. The president's whereabouts were unknown until Wednesday, with speculation that he had fled to Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, or Oman. The United Arab Emirates has confirmed in a ministry statement that the Gulf nation was hosting Ghani and his family on humanitarian grounds. Afghanistan's ambassador to Tajikistan had accused Ghani of stealing $169 million from state funds and called on international police to arrest him. Ghani said he supports talks between the Taliban and former government officials and that he was in talks to return home after seeking refuge in the United Arab Emirates.
All right, so that's it on Good Morning Nigeria for today. We appreciate your being with us. We're back tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Until then, do take care of yourself. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kyrian Umayo. Thank you for watching. See you again tomorrow.